Welcome to Canada's podcast, the number one podcast for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs.
Hi, this is Angela Fay from Canada's podcast. As we launch into 2020, it's essential that we engage and adapt to megatrends of the next decade. In particular, the on-demand production and delivery that is birthing and continues to birth the instant economy of things, and the continued increase in global abundance. As the middle income population continues to rise, driven by the convergence of high bandwidth, low cost communication, AI and AI aided professional services, all of these things are being digitized, they are fully demonetized and available to a rising population of people on their mobile devices. Today, part of that professional services trend, you get to meet Brett Colvin. He is the co-founder and CEO of Goodlawyer.ca. He's embracing these megatrends and he's passionate about making sure that the most amount of people possible can access good quality legal services to stay resilient and sustainable in business and life. So welcome, Brett, to Canada's podcast. How are you?
I'm doing good, and thanks so much for having me, Angela. It's exciting to be here, and I look forward to sharing a little bit about my journey and where we've gotten Goodlawyer to today.
Well, and so let's just launch right in. Tell me a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey, because it's an interesting pathway. I love it.
Yeah. So for me, I mean, I've always been a bit of an entrepreneur. I started my probably first so-called business when I was 4. Paying my little brother to go find golf balls so I could sell them. So, you know, I've always had this bit of an entrepreneurial itch since I was a kid, and got to try that out in a sort of grander scale for the first time during my undergrad. Ran one of those painting franchises that I'm sure you've seen. And that really opened my eyes to what it was to run a real business. And once I got a taste, I knew that one day I'd be running my own business again. Wasn't sure when that was going to be. Managed to spend about 3 years in law school and another 4 practicing. So it took me a while to get back here, but happy to say that that journey wasn't a waste and have managed to sort of merge those two worlds in what we like to call Goodlawyer.
So tell me a little bit about Goodlawyer.
Absolutely. So Goodlawyer is a platform that connects entrepreneurs, startups, small business owners with affordable legal help right across the country. So we connect those individuals with business-focused lawyers, most of whom work independently as they're, entrepreneurs themselves, and we connect the dots. So we connect those business owners looking for legal help with these lawyers with a ton of extra capacity and the right skill sets to help them with their specific problems. So, much like Skip the Dishes or Uber connects you with a driver or a meal, Goodlawyer does the same thing, connecting you with top-notch legal advice right across Canada.
Awesome. So give me a sense of how long you've been in business and how things are rolling out so far.
Yeah, so that's kind of a funny question because Goodlawyer has been percolating for a very long time. I mean, I bought the domain and a bunch of other domains in first year law school without really any clue as to what I was going to be using it for. Had a conversation that really struck me about Goodlawyer, and that's really what people were looking for. So bought the domain on a whim and sat on it for a good 6 years. Started building the product in my last year while I was still working at a big corporate law firm in Calgary. And the ideas were percolating, and then eventually hired a software developer who worked out of my apartment for the first 10 months while I was working at the office all day. We'd come home and brainstorm at night, and then left the corporate firm last year in February. And then we launched the first version of Goodlawyer April 2019. And, launching a new startup is a rocky path, to say the least. So we struggled to find traction that first year, launched a totally new product, January 2020, focused on what we coined micro legal services, really bite-sized, affordable legal services like 15-minute advice sessions or per-page contract reviews for $25. And that is really what propelled us forward this year. And this year, unlike last year, we've been seeing some tremendous growth. So really exciting time to be on the Goodlawyer team, and also to just to be in the world of law, because it's changing faster than it has ever before.
So I'm going to come back to that. I'm not going to lose that. World of law is changing. I just, as you even said, leaving the firm, I was that classic reading about the firm and the pop culture about the firm, right? And what it means and the abuse of all these young lawyers and I don't know, by reputation or reality. I haven't worked at a law firm before, but tell me about the demise of the firm, like what, or the future demise of the firm. What's happening there that seems to be the trend?
Now, I was at a massive corporate law firm, and I mean, we've seen one similar size law firm go under in the last 5 years, and I think that was the first time it ever happened. That was called Heenan Blakey, and that was a huge storyline, massive firm. You know, Chrétien worked there, and it crumbled because I think at the end of the day, that type of a partnership model that has been really sort of stretched to its ends is a fickle organization, just in the sense that there's not a lot of retained earnings. There's not a lot of value baked right into the company. Really, there's a strong brand, and then they really are reliant on bringing in top-notch talent, top-notch, students, and then young lawyers, and then grooming them into being, the best lawyers in Canada. Where they go astray from me, and like my struggle when I was working at the firm was, when you have a firm made up of 500 or 1,000 lawyers across a country, or for some of them now across the world, it functions much like a corporation, in the sense, like a large corporation enterprise, a lot of bureaucracy, not as nimble as a smaller partnership or a smaller organization would be. And so I found that trying to push for innovation, which has always been a major passion of mine, was challenging. So really, that struggle to innovate on just some fundamental things like the billing model. I mean, billable hours permeate their way through this entire legal industry. And, even just going back to my painting days when I was running a painting franchise, I learned how to estimate. And it struck me, I was so confused why lawyers just were so adverse to estimating how much projects were going to cost, and, offloading all of that risk onto the client.
Right.
Isn't how other services, for the most part, are provided. And lawyers have been sort of couched in this regulatory monopoly. So as I was saying, the legal profession is couched in this regulatory monopoly that has, in my view, allowed lawyers to rest on their laurels a little bit and not innovate in the ways that we've seen in so many other sectors. Healthcare, financial services, these big, fairly comparable areas, from one sort of perspective or another, have been going through this rapid and enormous transformation, and law is lag behind. And that is really where I saw a massive opportunity to take the profession that I had just gotten baked into and learned about, and seen the problems from a new perspective, being the lawyer's perspective. Because I think that's the interesting part from my experience, is I got that insight as to lawyers were struggling too. At the big firms, they're getting, punished with massive targets, like hourly targets. And at the small firms, they're struggling to find new clients and generate enough revenue to keep the lights on. So I just got to see it from that perspective, which I feel like is really kind of hidden to a lot of people. Lawyers are expensive and scary. I think a lot of people could relate with that. But the fact that there was so much opportunity also on the lawyer side to make things better is what really drew me into starting Goodlawyer and trying to build this bridge that would make the delivery of legal services more enjoyable for everybody.
When I'm going to come back to enjoyable, we're going to touch on affordable. That's, but really important right now is there's been some regulatory reform that's impacting how legal services are delivered. Is that right?
Sort of.
Okay.
I would say that there's reform is definitely too strong of a word to use in Canada. Okay. We are seeing for the first time in North America some pretty remarkable reform that is about to take off on January 1st of next year down in Arizona. So they're opening the doors entirely to new delivery models, non-lawyers having ownership in legal service providers. And these are things that have already occurred in the UK and Australia and other places in the world, but North America hasn't taken that step yet. And in North America, both Canada and the US, lawyers are regulated at the state or provincial level. So it's going to take more time for everybody to sort of get on board, but it's really exciting to see Arizona taking that first step. And I have very high hopes with how the access to justice crisis is going to improve in Arizona once they've allowed some more bodies into that world in providing legal services.
And would it be a fair comparison to say, so like in Australia and the UK, where you have a conglomerate of, say, software developers, and it's a CEO running the software development company, but that's not necessarily a developer themselves, right? So they're running the company. And so in your analogy is in those countries and in Arizona now, you can have a CEO running a company that isn't necessarily the lawyer.
Yeah, and I mean, we already see that at the big firms in Canada that, they started, I'd say in the last 10 years, hiring business specialists into the organization.
Okay.
But the kicker with that is that those business specialists, I'm sure they have a very nice salary and bonus opportunity, but they can't own part of the law firm.
Okay.
They can't be equity holders in the law firm because only lawyers can own law firms in Canada. So that's the distinction, or one of the many, but that's a key distinction with the UK and Australia, is non-lawyers can actually have some skin in the game. And, as we see with businesses in all industries, equity incentivizes and aligns interests. So really excited to see how it plays out in Arizona. The Law Society of BC just announced, I believe 2 days ago, they're going to be playing with an innovation sandbox, which is sort of the half step to what they did in Arizona. They're kind of emulating what's going on down in Utah. So, it's not what I would have liked to have seen. I'd like them to just open the doors and let companies like Goodlawyer, start filling that massive unmet legal need that exists. But, it's better than nothing. So it'll be interesting to see how that sandbox plays out here in BC.
So I've never heard that expression before. Apologies if it's commonplace, but an innovation sandbox. Now I know it was just released, but what is your understanding or impression of what it is set out to achieve?
It's a careful kind of let's test it out and see approach.
Okay.
The downsides to it are it's risky for businesses to get involved because it's a sandbox. It sort of has a timeline, a time horizon on it.
Okay.
Where again, it just came out a couple of days ago, so I just had to kind of periphery look at it so far. But you basically apply to the Law Society with your innovative business model. They give you the green light, and then they keep a close eye on you for a couple of years. And then after a couple of years, and again, I don't know what the time horizon is for the LSBC. That's what it was in Utah. They make a decision as to whether to keep permitting you to do what you're doing or tell you, no, there's been public harm, which is really the role of the regulator when it comes to legal services, is public harm. And we haven't seen how any of these sandboxes have played out in North America yet. I can tell you that doing the deep dives in the UK, it was the competition board. Can't remember who it was in Australia, but when they did the deep dives into the effects of these more innovative business models that weren't wholly owned by lawyers and, sort of clouded in the restrictions that exist across North America, the access to justice benefits were significant and material.
Right.
So I always like to pull the stat out of the Clio report: 77% of legal needs in North America go unmet. And from my perspective, none of the current rules can possibly justify a statistic like that. Like we're obviously not doing a very good job as a profession with this regulated monopoly we have to provide the public with access to legal services. And when you have 77% of them going unmet, in my mind, that is a very clear issue that needs to be addressed.
So how are you going about addressing it, either yourself or maybe in any advocacy roles that you're involved in? And what's almost a measurable statistic that we could aim for?
not exactly sure what you mean, but in terms of what we've done, I mean, we're still a pretty young company, but already, we've helped over 500 Canadians with pro bono legal services totaling over $20,000 of worth, and that's over the platform. So if you're going to a
Right.
traditional law firm, you can probably double, triple that number.
Right.
But we've been able to do that because we've got access to super affordable, high quality lawyers. And so our cost of services to provide, pro bono, if we're giving out promo codes, which is our primary way of doing so. And we can talk about the promo code we're going to give to the listeners at the end of this.
Absolutely.
But we found that just by giving people access to fast, efficient legal help has been game changing for them. So I'm not sure if that's exactly what you were looking for.
No, it absolutely is. And I mean, even just reducing with a big, goal of, say, reducing it from 77% of needs go unmet down to, we don't want to say, I mean, 0 would be perfect, right? But
yeah, I mean, reducing it from 77 to 76 would be a good start.
Okay, fair enough. And if you could describe right now, what are the most common questions or quick fixes that you're able to provide at Goodlawyer?
Yeah, so the microservices for sure, and I'll get more into that in a second, but I just wanted to draw a parallel to like the effect of Uber and Lyft on the transportation industry, and specifically taxis. So the taxi industry, if you now include Uber and Lyft into that industry, I believe it's like tripled in size, certainly more than double. And what that makes clear to me is in that space, there was this huge unmet demand that a taxi wasn't filling because it was less convenient, more expensive, yada, yada. The same thing exists in legal services, except for, in my view, having the right paperwork so your business is secure, or having someone going to court on your behalf. These to me are like more fundamental, important problems than how I'm getting to the grocery store, or how I'm getting to my friend's house tonight. I mean, that can be debated, but my point is simply there's this huge unmet legal need that a platform like Goodlawyer is going to be able to tap into, because people have these problems they want to get from A to B, whether it's down the street or whether it's in the courtroom. And platforms are the way that you can make that happen way more efficiently, and more efficiently means more affordably.
Absolutely. And one thing that you mentioned is friendlier. I mean, how it's pretty intimidating, really. I mean, I've had lawyers for a few different reasons, but can you describe how working with Goodlawyer is even friendlier, or dare I say more fun than a traditional format?
Absolutely. And it's a little bit of tongue in cheek trying to make legal stuff fun, because I am a lawyer, and it's a lot of drudgery, as I learned in my first class ever at law school. But we put a smile on it, and if you just go to the website, even goodlawyer.ca, it doesn't look like a normal law firm website. And we're not trying to intimidate you and trying to justify our $400 or $500 billable hours. All the prices are up front. We put on free educational webinars like almost on a weekly basis with good lawyers on the platform. And that, coupled with a business masterclass we're coming out with, that's going to be totally free.
Ooh, I like that.
Tons of content. So we're just trying to provide just like trusted materials and trusted opportunities for business owners to sort of dip their toes into the legal realm, get a little bit more educated, not because we're trying to turn them all into lawyers, but just so they have some awareness of the issues that are, crossing their path as a business owner. And our focus is on business owners. But really it's with that free educational stuff that we're trying to reduce the barrier to understanding for these business owners. And then just providing transparency when it comes to and who you're working with. Every customer can leave a review for their lawyer, which I've been so pleasantly surprised to see that has a huge impact on lawyers. Like, we had a lawyer yesterday get a terrible review and he was distraught. And then we called the customer, and fortunately she just accidentally put 1 star instead of 5 because she was thinking that was the because she gave us a great
Best.
Google. Yeah. So she was just a little
Okay.
confused, and we got that resolved. But just seeing how motivated lawyers are to get good reviews,
Nice.
to provide good service, and then having, the Goodlawyer team in the background for the customer or the client, just makes a world of difference. And
are you recruiting more lawyers, Brett, at this point? What's your kind of onboarding process for the actual lawyers side of things?
For sure. So, we've got a pretty robust vetting process. We were fortunate. The demand from the lawyer side is really high. I have lawyers reaching out to me probably every 3 days,
Right.
requesting to be on the platform. So I'm fortunate to have sort of a big list of lawyers to draw on as we add. We've been really careful not to add too much. One, to keep the lawyers on the platform as busy as possible, and make sure that, we're getting them up to speed on how to use the platform and how to sell services in this sort of new transformative way, which seems so funny because it's just about fixed fee upfront pricing, but in the legal world, it's transformative. And so we've just been working with like that core group of lawyers to really get them up to speed. And then we've been adding slowly additional lawyers as the demand increases. So we've got over 60 lawyers on the platform. About half of those lawyers we keep really busy. And that's definitely been one of the, again, kind of surprise benefits that I've been really excited to see, is the community that we're building on both the customer, but even more so on the lawyer side, because you have all these sole practitioners, especially in COVID days, working from home alone all the time. And Goodlawyer now creates this opportunity for them to connect with other lawyers, start to build a bit of community, learn from each other, help each other. And it's pretty good vibes all around right now.
Well, and there is definitely a trend as far as I've had a co-working space and have a virtual office here service, and the amount of people that are in the professional services industry, independent, that historically would have been in firms, lawyers being a big section of them. I'm quite surprised at how many are independent now.
Totally.
And is there a regulatory shift that has allowed that versus having to be part of a management firm?
No.
Okay.
I think that is just a function of the types of people and maybe the generational shift that we're starting to see.
Yes.
I'm 31, and I can tell you that a ton of my peers who I went to law school with or who I worked with at the big firm, they're thinking about this because they want flexibility. They don't want to just be a slave to the hours they have to hit. And they're all making pretty good money, but they're starting to see that that's not the be all end all. And if they have ways to make enough money, but also have a greater sense of freedom and purpose, that's becoming more attractive to them. So I've coined this one a couple of times, but I really do think that the future professional, their life's going to be defined by freedom as opposed to prestige that it historically has been.
I love it. Well, let's get into some nitty gritties. You are based in Vancouver. Is that right?
So we've got a few offices. I'm in Vancouver right now.
Okay.
The bulk of the team is in Calgary, and I kind of hop between, obviously less these days. And then we've got a few folks out in Ontario, in Toronto and Ottawa.
Okay. And when you say folks, what would your office look like in this day and age?
So we have, for the past 2 years, sort of bounced between co-working spaces and wherever I live.
Okay.
So typically I've been moving into houses with a little extra space, not quite the garage that, because we come the folklore stuff, but not so far off of that. We got the big whiteboard nailed to the wall. We got the tables. And so the houses have been slowly getting just ever so slightly nicer, but co-working spaces and the team working out of, some section of my home is pretty much how we've done it. I mean, we're really remote with lots of interaction. We're kind of a remote team that hangs out all the time.
That's pretty cool. And I think that is very much the trend of most future firms. So You're well and truly ahead of the curve there. I want to get into, is there any particular advantage of doing business now in a geographic location, Brett, from your perspective? Being a remote team, you're in 3 different communities with your staff. One thing we like to talk about at Canada's podcast is the fact that we are national, as is Goodlawyer.ca. Is there a culture or uniqueness of doing business in BC, let's say, versus Alberta versus Ontario? Or is it starting to erode?
Maybe a little bit, but not much. I'd say, the problems that we're trying to address are not unique to any province.
Right.
We're focused on the entrepreneur, but that's still pretty broad. So we're able to help entrepreneurs in a wide variety of sectors. I mean, our secret sauce definitely is for tech companies because we can connect them with lawyers that they just will never find on their own. But yeah, the problems that we're solving for both the lawyers and the business owners across Canada are very similar. And so I think that's one of the benefits of what we're doing, is able to connect those dots. And with the launch of our new subscription service, Goodlawyer Pro, we're hoping to actually be able to start connecting the dots on the customer side more. So you have pros, business owners networking with other business owners all over the country through the Goodlawyer community. Because again, you're stuck in Calgary, you don't know people in Ottawa or Halifax. So we're trying to connect those dots on the community side in the exact same way that we've been successful doing it on the lawyer side.
Fantastic. So you mentioned a couple of juicy things that I want to sort of add some value here. You mentioned the business masterclass. Can you expand a little bit on that? Sounds kind of
it's early days on that, but
okay.
It looks like we're going to get a little bit of funding budget, fingers crossed, to put together some really high quality videos. And those are going to be strictly educational, free, that we're going to put out there to educate business owners. And I can speak to this from my experience practicing. Lawyers
Absolutely.
have historically kept, the precedents, the information, everything, behind pretty closed doors. And, again, I can understand why giving that stuff away erodes a bit of their value. But I think that as we see going forward, the lawyer's role is going to move more away from the commodity stuff that, they are holding these precedents so tightly, into higher value add areas and really being, trusted advisors to the business as a whole beyond just doing the paperwork. So to sort of lead the charge on that, this just ties directly into the educational stuff we're already doing. So we're doing these webinars. The business law masterclass is going to be an evolution of that. And it's going to be high quality video teaching business owners about the, legal fundamentals that they should know about if they're going to succeed. And we're stealing a lot of our sort of idea generation from some amazing videos that Wealthsimple did on investor education. So,
well, and any sort of line in the sand, and I realize it could be a bit flexible, but on your launch date for that?
The business masterclass, we just brought on a new legal intern who's going to be kicking off here in the next couple of weeks, coupled with a couple of my advisors who are sort of, work on Goodlawyer off the side of their desk because they're still at the big firm, and then myself. So the timeline, my best guess would be February launch of the business masterclass, but
awesome.
I can't promise that yet.
Okay, well, we will keep watch, and maybe you and I need to get together for just a quick 5-minute Friday and launch when you're ready to go to let people know they can
absolutely that would be
find
terrific.
it online. Okay, cool. And the second, of course, was you mentioned the free advice sessions. What's an offer there? What would you like to see with some of our listeners?
Yeah, so I'll mention 2 things. One is for any listeners, I'm not sure when this is going out, but we've got 100 spots for our early access of our Goodlawyer Pro. Goodlawyer Pro is going to be typically $49 a month, gets you unlimited advice sessions, vetted templates, and access to that community I was talking about.
Yep.
First 100 access users are going to get a month free. And, just in terms of comparing prices, a typical Goodlawyer advice session is $39 a month. So if you're a business owner and you talk to a lawyer every month or 2, Pro is probably for you because the price point is so sweet. The offer for the listeners today, so we've already filled 50 of that 100 slots. So if anybody hears this before the end of November, jump on goodlawyer.ca/pro and you'll be able to access that. But then going forward until February, I think is the date we kind of pegged. If you use the promo code podcast on goodlawyer.ca, that'll get you a free advice session with any of the lawyers on the platform. So really simple. You just hit the promo button when you're checking out and type in podcast, and the promo will apply automatically if you're listening to this.
Awesome. We're super excited. Appreciate the value add for podcast listeners with Canada's Podcast. We have the same market, which is business owners and entrepreneurs across Canada. And I absolutely
I love entrepreneurs. They're my favorite people, truly. Like I just think they're so interesting. You know, that I think entrepreneurs see the world in a different way. They, you know, see the future and aren't just content sort of continuing on with what they're doing in the current status quo. So I just find my conversation with entrepreneurs of all shapes and sizes are just so fascinating. So
well, and on that note,
I feel lucky to work with them all the time now. Like it's kind of fell into this a little bit, but I'm a pretty happy man these days getting to deal with a lot of cool business owners across Canada.
Well, and if nothing else, I think that encapsulates the friendly and fun aspect of your business, Brett. And I totally agree with you. So I'm going to add that it has been an absolute pleasure getting to know you, and of course, product testing the goodlawyer.ca platform a little bit myself. And happy to promote it and encouraging more people to use the Good Lawyers of Canada cross country on goodlawyer.ca. And, you know, as we watch your company grow and we expand more access to legal services for our business community nationally. So thanks, Brett. It has been a pleasure promoting you on Canada's Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Angela. It's been a treat, and I look forward to more discussions down the road.
You bet. Sounds great.